This is not the church of Joseph Smith.
Travis Wingoodsell. I just finished dinner, was watching Gemini Man for the first time, and I stopped it. I have to do this video. I'm getting bugged, and it won't let me alone until I do this video. I was trying to negotiate to do it tomorrow and take notes, and I don't think you can sort of see the paper. I have the binder as I showed the other day, rather than doing the post-it notes, to preserve post-it notes, since I got stuck with a whole bunch of paper with the second X. As you guys know, I'm an LDS critic. Born and raised in the church, 50 years, and that's why the church came after me, was because I was faithful to the church. So faithful that I pursued an education to find out if Joseph Smith was correct, and did, with languages, translation. Deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, then went on to decipher Egyptian picture glyphs, and discovered that the Bible comes from the Egyptian documents. And yes, Joseph Smith was on the right track. He's not my style of translation. He wasn't complete with the Book of Abraham, and like I did the video, I didn't even do much with the Book of Joseph other than to fill in the missing parts of the pictures in the Book of Abraham, but nevertheless did a couple of scriptures to give us an idea of what he was planning. In Doctrine and Covenants, section 88, or was it 84, where it talks about Moses taking away the high priesthood. That was Joseph, again, using the papyri to rewrite the Bible with Egyptian documents as the background for it. Akhenaten, I did that book a while back, making that connection. Because I was a translator back in 1998, the church had me blacklisted. They tried to have me excommunicated, and unbeknownst to me, they blacklisted me. They created a file system for me, and I found out about it because of my being disappeared by the church in 2008, 10 years later. I found out the file number, and found out the reason for the file number was because I had communicated with the church about my Paleo-Hebrew decipherment and working on translations. And all I was doing was asking, did Joseph Smith have anything else that I may not know about. That was it. I'm a translator. And the church came after me. And despite being sort of free now, you're never really free. It's like my parents. I fled as soon as I could to Rick's to get away from my parents. But they keep coming after you. They won't let you go. And for my parents, it's because we're your parents. We need to keep control of you. We need to control your life. We can't allow you to be free and live your own life because you're a failure in our eyes. And therefore, we need to control your life and tell you what to do, when to do it, and how much you can do it. So that was the life I lived, and that's the church. That's Utah. To a T. The whole culture of Mormonism is this way. And now that I know that, I want nothing to do with it. But they won't let me go. I have Mormons on YouTube when I'm pointing out using the standards for the church to judge. Mormons say, no, you can't use the Book of Mormon to judge the church. Travis, what are you doing? They don't get it. They keep coming after me. They keep belittling me, abusing me verbally, and neglecting. And that's the popular one, is that there's a shunning that goes on. And despite Bishop Reed Hammond telling me, oh, we don't shun in our ward, and then he goes and shuns me. It's just the hypocrisy, the pure evil that is permeated into their thinking processes, into their daily lives. They live under this hatred of humanity, this need to control others. It's just, it's beyond heartbreaking. It's more terrifying as someone who was born and raised in the church, 50 years, realizing it wasn't just my parents, and that it wasn't just regular members, random members. It's the whole culture. And yes, those of you who are critics of the church, I see it in you guys when I watch your videos. There's still that baggage you've taken from the church. I especially see it with John DeLynn. And the popular ones especially. They have the same mindset, but now it's the church betrayed us and excommunicated us, and so now they then become the source rather than the church as the source. But it's the church that's the origins for it. That's why they don't communicate with me, whereas they are in a position to help others transition out of the church. None of them reached out to me as I started to research church history, and that's probably why, is because I wasn't finding out what they found out, which is they read books by authors. And D. Michael Quinn, for example, who I had taken a class with at the University of Utah, Sociology of Mormonism, actually. And so he was the first one that told me about the September 6th, and I had no clue what he was talking about. I had no idea he was involved. I didn't even know it existed. And so after he told me, then I had done some searching on that when I could. But yeah, everybody thinks that they've got it figured out, whether they're Mormon or they leave the Mormon church. The Bakers, for example, They left the church, joined Christian group of some sort, and then last I heard they joined a Jewish group of some kind. I don't know if it's Jewish Christian or Jewish altogether, but yeah, I don't see Mormons pursuing Egyptian though. I'm the only one who does that. It's because I went into that field of study, and so I found out that the Bible's origin, therefore religion's origin, comes from the Egyptians. But what I'm greatly concerned about, and why I stopped the Gemini video or movie, why is it getting hotter at 6:30? It's now 73 degrees. Is it because I was eating? We're supposed to have a frost tomorrow. But, when Nelson took over, it was already under suspicious circumstances, because I was noticing as Monson was on his deathbed, the church was still coming out with new signed documentations with Monson's signature as he was on his deathbed. You can't do that. I don't know if Mormons who are listening understand this. The president of the church is the leader. Not all 15 like Oaks tries to pull, as I know damn well when he takes over, he's going to be the supreme authority, and all this other junk that he's been trying to pull off is going to go out into the trash. But you know, the Mormons know this. Whatever the prophet says goes. And if the prophet is on his sick bed or on his deathbed, nothing really gets done. Sure, the other businesses of the church continue to function, but no new stuff is supposed to take place because he can't function at the moment. Kids can go on missions still because they have somebody to take over that position during his sickness or near-death experience. So the church can still function, but no new stuff, no new revelations, no new commandments, nothing. Only the president of the church can do that. And yet signatures in his name were occurring. And then he gets up, and now Nelson gets up for his first conference and shocks me. He takes away the high priesthood group. And Mormons were clueless. They couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe me, anyway. And then he goes and takes away the home teaching program. He then declares that they've been doing business with Russia. And Mormons still don't get it. They don't see it. They don't see anything wrong. What's wrong with that? Temple, spreading the gospel throughout all the world. Woo! They don't understand. They're supposed to be wise as serpents, but innocent as lambs. Something like that in the Doctrine and Covenants. But you don't deal with Russia and come out innocent. Everybody, and that's literal, everybody who does business with Russia gets corrupted if they're not already corrupted. Because Russia makes sure of it. They refuse to do business with people who will not get themselves compromised. They get compromised on you even if you don't want it. Just because you came to them and said, hey, I'd like to do business with you. Okay, well, we doctored these photos of you with some prostitute in our hotel that you stayed at. That's how they work. And so then they say, well, we want you to launder this money for us through your company, and you have to do it, or the compromat gets leaked, and you get exposed, and if that's not enough, you will eventually get assassinated if you don't do what they want you to do. That's how Russia works. And so when I heard that the temple was going to be put in Russia, that was like, holy crap, I just got through studying the real church history. And there it was, confirmed for me in that first general conference. And then he keeps doing stuff, changing the church drastically. You know, he changes the temple. Women no longer obey their husbands. It shouldn't be that way anyway, but now women think that they don't have to listen to their husbands, they don't have to take counsel with each other. Women now think they can do whatever they want in the home, which is what women have been trying to do and getting away with anyway. As I see Mormon elders who are married, and even high priests who are married, they all talk the talk within priesthood, not in the presence of their wives, in priesthood, about how women run the family, that they're the bosses and they're bullies, and they justify it by saying, well, they're more spiritual and we're low-life scum. And I'm just like, what's going on? You know, I got divorced because I stood up to my wife when she tried to pull that stunt on me. But maybe that's why. I stood up against the bullies, whereas other Mormons don't. And if they aren't bullies themselves, they get bullied. And that's how I've been treated here in Utah. That's how I'm treated here on YouTube. That's how I was treated on other places. It's just Mormon culture. It's the way they are. We're right. How dare you speak against us? And they bully to get their way. And so, yeah, with the temple changes, Nelson appears to give women more freedoms, as Mormons believe that's what they're getting, but women still don't get the priesthood in offices, as Oakes again reiterated. There's no way in hell women are getting offices, despite Romans 16, when it's correctly translated, Mormons. It's not servant. Look it up in the Greek. And then Junia. That one's not mistranslated. Paul makes it very clear what office she held. Yeah, the law of chastity got changed. So now it's no longer compliance to the United States of America due to the Edmunds-Tucker Act, which disincorporated the church. Do you understand what disincorporated means? Dissolved, ended, done away, over, out. What other words can I use to explain disincorporated for you? You have to get articles of incorporation if you're a business. If you're disincorporated, that means you're no longer a business. You're out of business. You're closed permanently. That's what disincorporated means. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because of the Edmunds-Tucker Act, got disincorporated. They were allowed to keep the temples. That was it. All their businesses, the brothels, the brewery, yes, the church owned those and operated them, among other businesses as well. And the church had to rent back what they could and went deep into debt. So Lorenzo Snow then comes out and says, hey, I got this great revelation. The church will now pay us, or the members will now pay us to get out of debt. And we'll call it tithing. It's protection racket. What criminal organizations do. And Mormons have been led to believe, oh, prophet, you got revelation. Okay, here's your money. Here's our money. You're obedient. And then Nelson, in this last conference, I bless you that you may repent. Oh my God, and Mormons still don't see it. And Nelson comes out with a new God. A new God. I can't believe Mormons fell for this. Of all things, that was my extreme hypothetical example to my second ex. Because she was so hard-hearted. I am trusting in the prophet and the church over the Book of Mormon, she said. Over the Book of Mormon! And so I said, well, what if Nelson brought Lucifer to conference? I will trust in the prophet and the church. It's just, and then he goes and does it. He brings Lucifer to conference with the new symbol. Jesus is built upon the church, which is the cornerstone. And Mormons miss it. They bring out handbook number 1. That's the holy grail of Mormonism. And I told you guys this when it came out. I was like, what the hell? And then I realized they decided to bring it out right before the judge was supposed to render a verdict in my lawsuit against the church. But she didn't. And then the judge canceled court for my birthday. You guys know about Gaddy versus CLP with Kay Birmingham. She's the popular one. Mine has gone under the radar. I've only been able to tell you here on YouTube. Mine destroys the church. It's over. It's done. The only thing that got in the way was coronavirus. And the church was doing everything right before that as if they were fleeing, preparing to flee. And I did the video saying, hey, the church is doing stuff that's what people who are planning to flee the country are about to do. They're getting their affairs in order, and then they're going to take off and run with the money. Then coronavirus hits. And so now the church is able to do the Mormon tactic of ignore everything and hope it goes away in the future. And so they're hoping coronavirus will be long enough so that when they do eventually start up the church again, everybody will then just forget all that had happened. The Boy Scouts declaring bankruptcy, where the church provided the pedophiles and the boys for the pedophiles in the Boy Scout program. And the church said, hey, we wash our hands, we're out of the Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts, it's all yours to handle. And so the Boy Scouts of America had to declare bankruptcy the day after Handbook 1. And that's not the only scandal. There are others. I found another woman who was doing reporting on how she was poisoned, and it's still continuing today at the girls' camps. One in particular, I guess. They're poisoning Mormon girls at this camp. I mean, what was done to me by having me disappeared, nobody else fully grasps the depths of evil that the church is involved with that. Nobody knows and understands it. You don't just disappear somebody because they're a translator and the prophets aren't. They don't even claim to be translators. Go back and listen to this sustaining vote, which is not supposed to be that either. Go back and listen. Prophet, seer, revelator. And nothing. No translator. They won't touch it. They won't talk about it. That's one of the things they're silencing, hoping that Mormons will forget about it and hinge point, move on. That's what Irene brought up. That was the word that I was looking for. Hinge point. And still, Mormons can't see it. They can't recognize it. And I guess the only reason is that Mormons are in denial. Literally in denial. They don't want to believe what is blatantly obvious. And so, I mean, this is a serious tragedy. The collapse. And I predicted it. Not just the American government, but the church. It has to collapse in order for the second coming. See, Moses didn't just go to the government. Pharaoh was also the religious leader. Jesus spoke out against the religion, not just the government. In fact, he was mostly on the government, or the religion, rather than the government. He said that thing, render unto Caesar's what is Caesar's. But with the church, Pharisees, scribes, hypocrites, Matthew 23. He would never speak out against Caiaphas, though, which is interesting, other than, I am the Christ, which is a direct slap in Caiaphas's face, as he is the fill-in as the great high priest, and thus the Christ, the Messiah. Mormons don't get that. They read in the Doctrine and Covenants that the president of the church is a man like Moses, but they don't understand Moses is the Messiah, is a Christ. Christians don't get it. There's only one Lord. No. See, how can he say that he's restoring the kingdom of David if David wasn't also a Christ? So, yeah, Christians are all messed up because their Bible's all messed up. I really didn't want to do this. I wanted to watch Gemini Man. He just got burned as they tried to assassinate him, and now he's in the other lady that he burned, and she's got the gun pointed at him while he's making himself some coffee in her kitchen. So, yeah. But yeah, the church is burned. And I burned them. I hurt them bad with my lawsuit. And it was supposed to be over for the church. But now it's over for the church because of coronavirus. But this allows them to re-emerge after coronavirus is ever over. And I'm sure they know damn well 2024 is what they're preparing for. That's why they started it. That started the Salt Lake temple renovations to make it earthquake-proof as their excuse. To shut things down. They knew. I mean, Nelson is a medical doctor, guys. He knows all about this. He knows that people need food from the bishop's storehouses because this is going to be a pandemic. He knows this. He knows that's what people need. He's the religious leader to be a man of charity to the world in a crisis situation. And he closed the storehouses. I mean, where in the scriptures justifies that? Where? The parable of the talents? which was their excuse for the hoarding of the money. We're going to give it to Jesus. And Mormons still don't see it. What does it take? And so, yes, this is very disturbing. And I can sort of understand, because Mormons, who are probably, for the most part, remaining, are those who started with Brigham Young, whose ancestors were converted by Brigham Young, the Danites. And I've had that confirmed with abusive comments, claiming that they were a Danite. His channel was a Danite, or the Danite, or something like that. And so, yeah, I mean, Mormons should be terrified. They have been denied exaltation. And again, read Matthew 23. Jesus condemns the Pharisees, saying, you deny the people exaltation, and you yourself aren't going anyway. Something like that. He doesn't say exaltation, obviously, but that's what he meant. What does it take, Mormons? How thick is your skull? How big of a crowbar do I need to take to your hearts? I mean, the Book of Mormon talks about how the prophets had to get so threatening, warning of death and destruction, in order to soften people's hearts. And I've been doing that, and it's still not working. Coronavirus has gotten Mormons kicked off the job. They don't have money now to pay for things. They're claiming, that we're still going to get direct deposits pretty soon. It's supposed to have been Monday, starting Monday. But there's no guarantee any of us who are getting checks are going to get checks, because we don't trust the government with our bank account numbers. But yeah, we're looking at a complete and utter collapse as they transition from the previous economy into the new world order economy. That's what the stock market's been doing this last week, is people are reinvesting in businesses that are thriving under coronavirus. And that's why people still are out of work, and more are continually adding to being unemployed, as we'll go week after week still, with more and more people, millions more people getting canned. I mean, the other states, the more recent states that have finally shut down, we're going to see their numbers next week. For example, Utah cut their UTA in half. That's 200 for the state of Utah just for UTA, the buses. So, what are they going to do for money to buy things? Because the grocery stores in a crisis are still demanding money. Just like the businesses who make medical supplies for the hospitals to treat people are demanding money, and demanding the highest bidder on top of that. This is a crisis, and people are trying to profit off of it. I mean, the corruption goes beyond just the church. So, man, I'm going to have to watch this another day. What's it take? What's it going to take? I mean, this is very disturbing, guys. Why don't you see it? I know it hurts that I'm right. Nobody wants to admit that somebody else is right and they were wrong. I understand that. But this is our lives on the line. Why don't you get it? Why don't you realize? Wake up, because it's too late now. You know? I mean, Passover is over next Thursday. That's the last day of Passover. It's 8 days this year. But I don't see the coronavirus ending by the last day of Passover, where Pharaoh just says, okay, fine, you win, Moses, and then the Egyptians give him money. That would be the lawsuit. I confronted the courts against the church, and I don't see the courts opening. They're closed until May. Back on my birthday to May 1st, which is the date anniversary for the Illuminati. And it's still getting reported that even though we may be tapering off, we'll still be going into May, if not June, before we can finally say it may be safe, but you can't rush back until you're 100% sure. Because we don't know if this will resurge in the summertime. We don't know if it's going to come back in the fall. It's brand new. And it just corresponds with the prophecies of the last days. And now we're in it. And Governor Herbert has now shut off the world and the rest of the United States from Utah. He has isolated Utah now. We're on complete lockdown. A completely independent, seceded state. And yet I'm still seeing Mormons saying, we don't like that, Travis. I don't care if you don't like it. It's not up to me. It's not up to you. Governor Herbert did it. And it's the same with Nelson. I didn't do it. Nelson did it. Don't get mad at me. Don't hate me. I didn't do it. So it's just not right what's going on. So not enough of you are going to my Book of Joseph video. There's a few of you, but not enough. That's the evidence. More people are going to the... I'm going to be very simple with you Mormons. The church is false. More people go to that one. How much more shocking does Nelson have to be before Mormons say, okay, this is beyond my tolerance level? How much more shocking?